shade, shade, shade all day. Soldier Creek Campground at Fort Robinson was absolutely what I needed. Look, I made it to Route 20. I'm on my way east. Coming into Nebraska, the road looks a lot like this. It's really a beautiful drive. And I had heard about Fort Robinson when I was at Laramie, so I decided to stop since 20 cuts right through town. Just an odd, for me, experience of a historic site. But then when you know the history, a little bit of it, it makes sense. Really the function of and the placement of the Sioux or Lakotas into further north into South Dakota, Pine Ridge. This was used by the Army. It was an Army base, and they did canine corps training and some aviation experimenting and horse training. And it was like a country club. Well, it's still kind of like a country club, and I guess maybe that's retained its historic flavor. There's a swimming pool right here, and everything costs. So it's $5 to go swimming, $2 to go into the museum to watch the movie, see the exhibits, $3 for this. It isn't, and there's just something that makes me angry about that. It is a state facility. It is geared to large groups and to this kind of activity. So anyway, I'm going to go. On May 6, 1877, Crazy Horse and 889 of his followers surrendered at Red Cloud Agency. They set up camp a mile and a half northeast of present-day Crawford. In late summer, rumors spread that Crazy Horse and his band were planning to break away and renew war with the whites. On September 3rd, Department Commander General George Crook ordered his arrested. In the meantime, Crazy Horse fled into the Spotted Tail Agency, 40 miles northeast. There, he was convinced to return to Camp Robinson and give himself up. At 6 p.m. on September 5th, he rode in, escorted by friendly Sioux scouts. The plan was to take Crazy Horse to Fort Laramie that evening, then to Cheyenne and on to the rail to division headquarters in Chicago to see General Phil Sherman. Cook ordered that several of his band accompany Crazy Horse to confirm that the Army did not intend to harm him. Crazy Horse was taken to the guardhouse to await departure. After a brief scuttle inside the guardhouse, Crazy Horse bolted out the door and received a fatal bayonet wound from a sentry outside. He was then moved to the adjoining adjunct's office, where a surgeon provided the dying man with medical aid. Oh, yay. Over 1,000 Cheyenne had been moved in 1977 to Oklahoma to a reservation. They found that unbearable, and a year later, they returned to their homeland. In September, 300 of them made their way back. But they split into two groups. Little Wolf took one party, and he spent the winter in the hills undetected. Dull Knife took the other, mostly women and children, and surrendered at the Red Cloud Agency at Fort Robinson. Dull Knife's band was captured in October. 149 people were crammed into this building and imprisoned for months, waiting to be sent back to lands they disliked. Tore up the floor and dug out rifles that they had hidden. They were here for months, and then busted out. Apparently they busted out these front windows and fled, and then they were chased down, half were murdered. Iron Teeth, who survived the outbreak. After the night bugle sounded, my son smashed a window with the gun I had given him. Others broke the other window and tore down the door. We all jumped out. My son took the younger of 2 daughters upon his back. The older daughter and I each carried a small pack. I was expecting the soldiers would be asleep except a few guards, but bands of them came hurrying to shoot at us. One of them fired a gun almost at my face, but I was not harmed. It was bright moonlight, and several inches of snow covered the ground. For a short distance, all the Indians followed one broken trail toward the river, but soon they had to scatter. My son, with the little girl on his back, ran off in one direction, while the other daughter and I went in another direction. We had no agreed plan for meeting again. I don't know if I was asleep during history class or it just never came up. I grew up in a Civil War area, so I know a lot about the Civil War and know nothing about the Indian Wars. It wasn't until I walked out to the Red Cloud Agency site that I understood what the heck an agency was. So the Red Cloud Agency site that's memorialized here are the federal offices of the agents who administered the appropriations to the Sioux people. They said, here you can settle here and we'll take care of you. We will give you a certain amount of food and shelter, protection, in exchange for your land, which the Lakota people were North and South Dakota. So Red Cloud Agency had been at Fort Laramie, and then they were moved out here. Red Cloud and his followers, several thousand, would have been camped in the area around the agency for miles around. And you can understand why they love this area. Look at the view.